As the world is super concerned these days about the possibilities of people losing money in the banks, as we hear more and more about possible insolvency issues and concerns that the government may print money and maybe this is going to hyperinflate and all these other things, it is bringing concerns that maybe central bank digital currencies are on the way. This is the perfect way to usher them in. And amidst that, the Fed is launching a new service in July called FedNow, which is a transfer service. And there's been all sorts of comments about what this is. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about what the FedNow system is, whether you should be concerned about it, how that plays into central bank digital currencies. Are they here? Are they on the edge? Will they be here next year? Do you need to worry? When do you need to worry? We're going to cover it all right now. Before we do, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the all notification bell. Thank you for being with us. Really appreciate your support. I am Michael from Offshore Citizen. We are global tax revocation specialists. We help you figure out what is the best legal global tax solution for you, going into all kinds of nuances and deep analysis, customized to your individual situation, as well as where to live, how to set up your international companies, do banking, etc. We can help you with both the strategy and the implementation. If you're interested in that, please reach out to us. You can book a call with me, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer, so link in the description below, or send a message through offshorecitizen.net. Okay, so very quickly, what is the FedNow system that is being implemented by the Fed? Well, this is not a central bank digital currency, okay? So I heard some people kind of make this comment the other day, thinking that, you know, this is that, or this is step one to that. Not only is this not that, this is not actually step one to central bank digital currencies. What this is a payment system. So for those who are familiar with other parts of the world, such as the EU, you have SEPA payments, which is quite quick and works very well. If you're in UK, you have UK faster payments. There's special systems in Hungary and in many different countries. They have a local payment system, which is quite quick and efficient. On the other hand, the US is fairly archaic. So you have ACH. ACH is really not that good. You have wires. We know that wires are typically not that good. Now there's, like ABA routing codes for kind of domestic US wire system. Then there's the SWIFT network for global wires, etc. So the FedNow system is a system for transfers between banks, etc., to be faster, easier, etc. Really, the US is just catching up to a lot of the world. And so if you weren't concerned about SEPA, and you shouldn't have been, then you shouldn't be concerned about FedNow in this regard. Okay, so let's get that off the table right away. You do not need to be afraid at this point. I think, maybe there's concerns later. We're going to talk about that in a second. But at this point, this particular thing is not a CBDC and is not like going to become it. So let's just talk a little bit about what is a CBDC and how that's different from payment rails. Okay, so we have to separate the currency itself from the payment rails. Okay, so for example, you can have US dollars, that's the currency, and that can be transferred via SWIFT. That's a payment rail. It can be also transferred on the Visa and MasterCard systems. That's a payment rail. It can be transferred in some sort of crypto through a stablecoin. That's a payment rail. It could be transferred through Hong Kong dollars because Hong Kong dollars are effectively a stablecoin of the US dollar. Same thing with dozens of other currencies that are all pegged to the dollar. They're basically stablecoins and they're operating on their own kind of domestic payment rails, okay? So that's the first thing to understand and be aware of. The payment rails are just the technology, the infrastructure that allows you to move money. Okay? Now, money is not necessarily bills. Okay? Yes, bills, cash is in a sense one of the forms of payment rails for US dollars. Okay? But US dollars extend far beyond just cash. You want to have efficient payment rails because that facilitates all the wonderful stuff to do with modern e-commerce, to do with ease of transaction, etc. The thing that's going on there, though, is there's no real identity to that money. Okay, so it's totally fungible. You essentially just have, I want to say a database, but actually it's many databases, and those many databases interact with each other, debiting and crediting different ledgers. Okay, so essentially numbers just are added or subtracted accordingly on each end and kind of is supposed to reconcile out. And you have what Elon Musk would call these heterogeneous databases all trying to talk to each other, which is really an archaic and old, inefficient system. Okay? If we talk about the idea of a CBDC, you're talking more like programmable money. where you could track dollars in themselves. There would be a lot more information there, and it would be on a centralized database, which makes it much easier. But it's really, really important to note that in the CBDC model, what we're, I think mostly people watching this channel would say we're concerned about the idea of CBDCs, and we definitely think that's probably an overreach in terms of the power of governments. Shouldn't really be allowed. We see, why they want it in communist China, and we're not communist China. We don't want to be in that sort of a situation, and so why would you go accordingly? Now, they already have the ability to do certain things with money, right? They can expand the money supply, for example. They have basically an unlimited ability to go and print new money. Now, this is not physically actually turning on the printing press. They're doing it in computers, right? So that ability doesn't really come with CBDCs. I think what's more concerning is that the CBDCs would exist in essentially personalized wallets that would have information attached to them, could be tracked, could be frozen, could be debited. They can control that without having to go through another layer, and they would have access to a tremendous amount of data that goes along with this. I find this quite disturbing because I think that money is so sacred to your day-to-day existence, right? How do you eat without money? How do you go and find a place to stay? How do you clothe yourself? How do you work if you can't do that? How do you get other people to do work, etc.? Like, money is something that is better off when it is free-flowing. Now, you can then kind of figure out how to divert it, etc. That's a whole other conversation. But it's really, really dangerous when somebody can, at the flick of a switch, stop that. Very dangerous. You're essentially denying somebody the right to exist. And one of the things that I've argued for a few years now is that it should actually be enshrined in the rights of a country that you have the right to have a bank account, send, receive, and store money. I don't think you have the right to borrow money. Loans are completely separate. But at least these things should be unimpeachable. It should be impossible to remove those rights from you because you're essentially denying somebody the right to exist when you take that away. Very, very important. Do I think that CBDCs are coming? Absolutely. I think that it is clearly evident that they're coming. Lots of countries are experimenting with them. Certainly China has already started rolling them out, and other countries will undoubtedly follow. I think that unfortunately that is the reality that we are facing, and the race that we are in is to try and develop an alternative faster than they do. What is the good news here? The good news is this will not be quick. Why do we know this will not be quick? Because you're talking about a major infrastructure rollout. So anyone who's actually tried to build something in the real world will know building stuff is hard. Trying to do large-scale IT projects is hard. It takes a tremendous amount of time. It is much, much longer when government is doing it. You have too many stakeholders, you have all sorts of complexity and bureaucracy, etc. The process of developing and implementing a system like that is a many-year process. Fortunately, right? In this case, this is one case where I think government inefficiency is a great thing. Government bureaucracy is a great thing. We want it to be super slow. We want there to be lots of political hurdles. We want to have people standing up and preventing it. I heard recently that DeSantis apparently basically decried CBDCs and say, no way, it's not a good thing. I would agree. I think it's not a good thing. I don't think we should be going in that direction. Much better to have decentralized money of some form or another. That being said, many countries will try. And so then the question becomes, well, how do these compete? How do they interoperate with each other? And is there some sort of a solution there? And what can you do for other money? These are questions that we don't know, and we will find out. But the good news is FedNow, not a CBDC. They can't just flip it into a CBDC really easily. It's not the kind of nature of it. By the way, the dollar probably wouldn't cease to exist in a CBDC. Like, it would be a digital dollar, but we've already got a digital dollar. It would be more like a programmable dollar. And you would have more like a wallet infrastructure. That's sort of the general idea. It's a little bit blurred as the concept, but something along that line. So we're not talking about get rid of the dollar and replace it with another currency. We're saying, no, the dollar would remain the currency, but it would become programmable dollars that would be tracked in a central database, that could be adjusted and controlled, and you could do all sorts of fancy things, which potentially would allow you to manipulate behavior, etc. That is, at least from my way of thinking, not good. So tell me what you guys think. Put it in the comments below. I will look forward to seeing you on the next video.